The story begins with Norman, a scientist and college professor. He recently moved to a new location with his wife, Claire. Dr. Norman is always busy, so he doesn't spend much time with her. They also have a daughter who has now moved away from home for college. This causes Claire to feel sad. She often reminisces about past memories of being happy with her family when everyone had time for her. One day she looks out the window and sees her neighbor arguing with her husband. After a while, they both go inside. Claire returns to her garden and hears someone crying. She looks over at her neighbor's lawn and finds her neighbor crying. Claire tries to talk to her, but she leaves without speaking. Claire finds this very strange, so she tells her husband, Norman, about it, but he doesn't take her words seriously. He ignores them for reasons we learn later. The next day, Claire goes to her neighbor's house with a bottle of wine and flowers. They knock on the door, but no one is home. There, Claire finds a sandal with a black mark on it. It appears to be a bloodstain. Claire returns to her home, where her best friend has come to visit. She asks Claire if she's okay. In fact, Claire had an accident a year ago, which left her with some memory loss. That's why Norman never fully believes her. And one night, while she's sleeping, the lights go out because it's raining heavily outside. Claire comes to the window and sees her neighbor's husband putting a large bag in the trunk of the car. She immediately calls Norman to show him. But when Norman arrives, there's no car or anyone there. This makes him think it's just Claire's hallucination, as there wasn't anyone there. Although Claire tries to reassure him, he doesn't believe her. The next day, when Claire is home alone, she feels as if someone has opened the door. When she approaches, it's indeed open. A photo frame falls down on its own. Claire also hears strange noises in the house. This disturbs her. She hasn't seen her neighbor in several days, and she's convinced her husband killed her. One evening, while Claire is working in her garden, she sees something in the lake nearby, which she believes is her neighbor's corpse. Horrified, she runs straight to her husband's lab, where Norman is conducting research. He's actually developing a drug that person remains fully aware of everything happening around them. Claire tells Norman everything, but he obviously doesn't believe her again. Claire demands to know what happened to her neighbor, so she goes to her house again, but this time, her neighbor's husband is there. Claire gives him a gift and asks about his wife. Hearing his wife's name, Claire becomes enraged and tells her to leave. As Claire leaves, she again sees the same sandals she saw before. This time she keeps them, convinced that her neighbor's husband killed her. Therefore, she begins monitoring the house with binoculars. Then she finds a strange key inside the heater vent, which she also keeps. Just then, she heard the sound of running water. When she went to the bathroom, she saw the tub full. As she went to turn off the tap, she saw the shadow of a ghost in the tub water. Terrified, she screamed loudly. Norman heard her voice and came there. She told him everything, but no one was there. Now Norman suspects Claire's mental condition is deteriorating. So the next morning, he takes her to a psychiatrist. But Claire is convinced that she's in good health. The spirit she saw in the water is indeed that of her neighbor, who was murdered by her husband. And now that she knows Norman doesn't believe her, she tries her best to be safe. She calls her friend. Using the bloody sandal, she makes a spirit call and attempt to summon her neighbor's spirit, but she receives no response. Claire's friend leaves, and after she leaves, Claire begins to hear strange noises. When Claire goes into the bathroom, she finds the bathroom is full again, and once again, she sees the ghost's shadow. She shouts, "What do you want?" Just then, "You know," appears on the window. The home computer turns on, automatically displaying Mel. Claire believes these are the words for her neighbor's name, so she goes to her husband. But this time, Norman doesn't believe her. Distressed, Claire comes out and sees her neighbor's husband. She yells at him, "You murdered your wife. You're a murderer." Before she can say anything else, her neighbor arrives. Yes, she was alive. Claire is completely shocked to see her. And now, after witnessing all this, Claire is convinced that everything she saw, everything she felt was just a figment of her imagination, bearing no connection to reality. The next morning, Claire is fixing a photo frame that had fallen and broken. Inside the frame, she finds a newspaper clipping reporting a missing girl. When Claire searches the news on the internet, she discovers that the girl in question was Madison Elizabeth Frank, or MEF, the same words that appeared automatically on the computer screen. Seeing this, Claire becomes completely convinced that what happened to her was not a figment of her imagination, but rather something connected to reality. Through this research, Claire also discovers that this girl had attended college with Norman a year earlier. When she asks her husband about this girl, Madison, Norman flatly denies it, saying he doesn't know anyone by that name. He also angrily tells Claire that she should stop this madness, but Claire is convinced that the spirit she saw belonged to none other than Madison. So the next day, she goes to Madison's house where she meets her mother. On her way back, she also takes some of Madison's hair that was stuck in a hairpin. Afterward, the spirit summons the spirit once again, this time taking control of her. When Norman returns home, he finds Claire behaving strangely. When Claire is close to him, he sees a shadow of Madison within her. Furthermore, the spirit of Madison is also visible, which frightens him, and he pushes Claire away. She falls down, and the hairpin holding Madison's hair falls out of her hand, and she regains consciousness, meaning she's no longer under the spirit's control. After this entire incident, Claire's memory, which had been largely lost, returns. She remembers that she once saw Madison with Norman. When she confronts Norman about this, he confesses. He says, "When things were going bad between you and me, Madison and I had a relationship, but it didn't last long." Angered by this, Claire goes straight to her friend and tells her everything. Her friend says, "I also saw your husband with a woman, and they're actually talking about Madison at a cafe outside the city." Claire returns home and confronts Norman about everything. He then says, "I never went out of town with her. I did have an affair with her, but I soon realized it was wrong. That's why I wanted to end it. After that, Madison threatened to kill you and me. But one day, she suddenly disappeared. I don't know anything more than that." This leads Claire to believe that Madison's spirit, which has been haunting them repeatedly, is appearing because she wants revenge. Now Claire wants to find out why Madison's spirit wants revenge on her, so she goes out of town to the same place where her friend said she saw Norman with Madison. Upon arriving, Claire discovers that Norman was lying to her. He had been there with Madison not just once, but several times. Now she is shocked by her husband's lies. She returns home and finds Norman in the bathtub. He's fallen, so she pulls him out. After he recovers, he says he just accidentally fell in. Then Claire asks him, "Did you kill Madison?" He replies, "No, I didn't." But Claire doesn't believe him. She doesn't have any evidence against Norman. She goes to the lake near their house, where she found Madison's hair. Her mind keeps returning to the lake when suddenly an unknown force pulls her underwater. As she goes deeper into the water, she sees a box with the same markings she saw on Madison's necklace in her photo. But before she can grab the box, her husband pulls her up. She then goes back to the same spot outside the city, this time going into a shop where she sees a jewelry box, the design of which is exactly the same as the one she saw inside the lake. Now Claire is convinced that this box must have some connection to Madison's life, so she goes inside the shop and retrieves it. The box opens with the same key she found inside the heater vent a few days earlier. When she opens the box, she's shocked to find Madison's jeans and necklace inside. Seeing this, Claire is convinced that Norman killed Madison. She confronts him again. This time her husband changes his story. He says Madison killed herself at their house. "Then I took her in the car and drove her to the lake and threw her in. I also threw the box in, and now she's confessed to her crime." Claire tells him that he must confess everything to the police. So Norman calls 911 and tells the police everything he did. She felt certain Claire had finally proven him guilty, but when she took the phone and tried to dial again, she realized Norman had called 411, not 911, meaning she hadn't told the police anything. Before Claire could react, Norman sneaked up behind her and injected her with the same drug he created in his lab, which rendered Claire unconscious. But she knew everything that was happening around her. Now that Norman felt Claire couldn't harm him, he revealed the true truth. He said, "I and Madison had a relationship, but I wanted to leave her. But Madison threatened to tell my boss everything if I did. That's why I was forced to kill her, and now it's your turn, my love." After this, he took Claire to the bathroom, wanting to embrace her one last time before killing her. As he approached her, he saw Madison's face instead of Claire's, a ghostly one. Seeing this, he panics. As he steps back, his foot slips. His head hits the glass, causing a severe injury. He falls to the ground, unconscious. Claire is still under the influence of the drug, but the coolness of the water slowly brings her back to her senses. With great difficulty, she manages to pull herself together and get back to the car. She's about to leave with the car, but when the car reaches the bridge over the lake, she realizes Norman is still inside the car, and suddenly he attacks Claire. This throws the car off balance and it plunges straight into the lake, the same lake where Norman had thrown Madison's body. Now, underwater, Norman tries to kill Claire again, but then Madison's spirit appears and grabs Norman tightly. Claire gets a chance to escape, and she manages to get out, but Norman can't. He dies of suffocation, underwater, thus giving Madison's spirit its revenge, bringing peace to her wandering soul. We then see a scene sometime later where winter has arrived and Claire visits Madison's grave and places a red rose, as Madison had avenged herself and saved Claire from Norman. Her revenge is complete. The spirit has grown, and Norman, who had done wrong, has been punished. And with this, the story of the movie ends.